Hi, I'm Laura.
And I'm Joe.
And this is Crime Divers.
Hello everybody, welcome to today's episode, which is a Laura-sode.
Yeah, that's me today.
So, where in the world are we?
We are actually in Australia today.
Australia. And what is the title of your episode?
It is called the Port Arthur Massacre.
Okay, I've heard of this, but I have no clue what it is.
Yes.
Well, I'm assuming it's a massacre.
Well, yes, it is a massacre. I mean, the title does give it away, and it happened at a place called Port Arthur, which is why it's called
really?
that. Yeah, really.
Okay,
Yeah,
I would
but
never have guessed that.
There's a bit more to the story than that, and I actually find it quite an interesting case, actually. Obviously horrific what's happened, but the person behind it is quite an is it enigma? Is that what they call it?
Enigma?
Yeah, like a sort of mystery, almost like a strange person. So there is quite a bit about him to start with, because I think it's quite important that you understand what he's like.
So this is the one that when you told me that you were writing up a case, you said I've wrote however many pages and I haven't even got to the crime yet.
Yeah, basically, yeah, because I think it's quite important that you understand, him, and then you might, maybe not understand the crime, but then it kind of, it's good to know what he's like, I think, for this case.
Okay,
so
shall we dive in?
Let's dive in. So Martin Bryant was born on the 7th of May 1967 at the Queen Alexandra Hospital in Hobart, Tasmania, Australia. He was the first son of Maurice and Carleen Bryant. His mother said that while Bryant was very young, she would often find his toys broken, and that he was annoying and different. As a he was annoying. I can't even speak. I'm doing a you. He was.
Excuse me. What do you mean you're doing a me?
But I can't get my words out. He was an annoying and different child.
Right.
A psychologist's view was that Bryant would never hold down a job, as he would aggravate people to such an extent that he would always be in trouble.
Really? It was that annoying?
Basically, yeah, that's what the psychologist said. So this was like before he would be working and stuff. This was him saying that's what he's going to be like, so he'll probably never hold a job because he'll just always be in trouble.
I've never heard anybody described like that before.
I know, but apparently that's what this psychiatrist has said.
Okay.
So locals recall abnormal behaviour by Bryant, such as pulling the snorkel from another boy while diving and cutting down trees on a neighbour's property. So he was a bit weird and random, did very weird random stuff. He was described by teachers as being distant from reality, and he was unemotional. At school, he was a disruptive and sometimes violent child. He suffered severe bullying from other children. And after he was suspended from school in 1977, he had psychological assessments which noted his torturing of animals.
Oh, God.
So he was quite a troubled child by the sounds of it, I think. He did actually return to school the following year with improved behaviour, but he still teased the younger children, so he was still causing trouble and stuff. He didn't come back and was like an angel or anything. He just... maybe not quite as bad as he was before.
Okay.
So he was actually transferred to a special education unit in 1980, where he actually deteriorated both academically and behaviourally throughout his remaining school years. So upon leaving school in 1983, he was assessed for a disability pension by a psychiatrist who wrote, quote, "Cannot read or write, does a bit of gardening and watches TV. Only his parents' efforts prevent further deterioration. Could be schizophrenic, and parents face a bleak future with him."
Oh, wow.
So that was the psychiatrist.
That's quite a thing to say, like a bleak future with him.
Yeah, so clearly he just didn't sound like he was going to amount to anything or have a great life. So he did receive his disability pension, but he did do some work. He worked as a handyman, and he worked as a gardener. It was later down the line, it's actually said that he was later found to have had an IQ of 66, which apparently is the equivalent of an 11-year-old.
Right, okay.
So even in when he was older, he was just very immature and not very brainy or anything. I mean, and leaving school, not even being able to read or write is pretty poor.
Well, if you've only got the mind to 11-year-olds.
Well, yeah, I guess
I mean, I know you could read and write at 11, but...
Yeah, well,
he's obviously got difficulties.
yeah, clearly. So this is where like the story takes a little bit of a random turn, I would say, because this is quite random, I think. So in early 1987, when Bryant was 19, he met a 54-year-old woman called Helen Mary Elizabeth Harvey. She was a heiress to a share in the Tatters Hall's lottery fortune. A heiress, is it? Heiress. Well, she was... I don't know how to say the word, right? So, yeah, she obviously was in line to inherit a lot of money from her fortune. Anyway.
Okay.
So, he met her while he was looking for new customers for his lawn mowing service that he was providing. So, Helen and Bryant became friends. So, bear in mind, she's 54,
and
he's 19. And I mean, I'm not saying that can't happen, but it just seems a bit unusual. So, yeah, they became friends. Helen lived with her mother, Hilza, at this point. And then in June 1990, medics found Helen and Hilza in need of urgent medical treatment, but I've no idea what that treatment was because there was no specification of what was wrong with them. Hilza died several weeks later from that.
Right.
But obviously Helen didn't. So after Helen's mother died, she actually invited Bryant to live with her. They began to spend large amounts of money, which included the purchase of more than 30 new cars in less than 3 years.
30?
Yeah. So they
Why?
began... I don't know. There's no reason. I don't understand.
It's a bit excessive.
But I don't even understand what this friendship was or how it became. But they began to spend most days shopping and having lunch at a local restaurant. Around this time, Bryant was actually reassessed for his pension, and a note was attached to the paperwork, and it said, quote, "Father protects him from any occasion which might upset him as he continually threatens violence. Martin tells me he would like to go around shooting people. It would be unsafe to allow Martin out of his parents' control."
Oh. But he is out of his parents' control, isn't he?
Yeah, because he's now
with this
living...
woman.
Yeah, so it's weird. So in 1991, Helen and Bryant moved together to a farm called Torsville. So I just don't get what this friendship is, to be honest.
So is it just a friendship or is it romantic?
Yeah, well, there was never anything specified it being romantic. It was friendship. So neighbours recall Bryant always carried an air gun and often fired it at tourists as they stopped to buy apples at a stall on the highway.
Well, that's just rude.
He's not a very nice person, is he? Late at night, he would roam through the surrounding properties, firing the gun at dogs when they barked at him.
Oh,
so it was
that's
really
not nice.
No, he really wasn't a nice person.
No,
I don't think so.
Poor dogs.
Exactly. So on the 20th of October 1992, Helen was actually killed when her car veered to the wrong side of the road and hit an oncoming car.
Oh, wow.
Bryant was actually in the car with her, and he spent 7 months in hospital with severe neck and back injuries. He was briefly investigated by police for the role he played in the accident, as apparently Bryant he had a known habit of basically lunging for the steering wheel. Like he'd done it in the past.
So I think that's what he did?
Yeah, because Helen had already had 3 accidents as a result, so she'd often told people that this was the reason she never drove faster than randomly 37 miles per hour. I don't know why it was so specific.
I wouldn't have him in the car with me.
But I was like, if he's got a known habit of doing it, why would you drive around with him?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I wouldn't have him in the car with me.
So I think that's what he's done, and that's what's caused the accident. But I mean, he was never, as I said, he was briefly investigated for it, so he was never...
But nothing came of it.
No, yeah, nothing came of it. He was never charged for it or anything like that.
Well, they maybe couldn't prove it.
Exactly. So Bryant was named as a sole beneficiary of her
is he getting all the
estate.
money?
So he inherited $550,000.
Wow.
Although his mother actually applied for and was granted a guardianship order over that.
Right.
So placing, Bryant's assets under the management of her, basically.
Yeah.
So the order was based on evidence of Bryant's diminished intellectual capacity. So basically, because he wasn't capable.
Yeah.
His mother did actually get control of his assets. So after Helen's death, Bryant's father, Maurice, looked after the farm that they'd bought. Bryant had returned to his family home to further recover. So after he come out of hospital after the accident, he didn't go to the farm. He went to his family home. But his dad basically still went to the farm and maintained that whilst he wasn't there. But obviously Maurice, he'd actually been prescribed antidepressants, and he had discreetly transferred his joint bank account and utilities into his wife's name. So 2 months later, on the 14th of August 1993, someone came to the farm looking for Maurice, and they found a note pinned to the door saying, quote, "Call the police," end quote. And then there was several $1,000s was also found in his car. So police searched the property for Maurice without success. Divers were called to search the 4 dams on the property, and on the 16th of August, his body was found in the dam closest to the farmhouse with a diving weight belt around his neck.
Oh, so he killed himself?
Yeah. So police described the death as unnatural, but it was ruled as a suicide.
Right.
So he had killed himself. So Brian, he actually sold the farm after this. He then started dressing very bizarrely. He often wore a grey linen suit, a cravat, lizard skin shoes, and a Panama hat.
Alright, yeah.
While carrying a briefcase during the day, telling anyone who would listen that he had a well-paying career.
Oh, okay.
Which obviously he didn't.
Yeah.
He often wore an electric blue suit as well, with flared trousers and a ruffled shirt to the restaurant where he often went to. The owner recalled, quote, that it was horrible. Everyone was laughing at him, even the customers. I felt really sorry for him. I realised this guy really didn't have any friends.
Oh.
That's the only time you're going to feel sorry for him.
Well, I didn't really feel sorry. It was just a kind of, okay, I've just realised that, I shouldn't be feeling sorry for this guy.
No. So Brian became, clearly really lonely. So in late 1995, he became suicidal after deciding he just had enough. He stated, "I just felt more people were against me. When I tried to be friendly toward them, they just walked away." So he began to drink quite a lot. And to be honest, he wasn't really a drinker before that. But he just obviously got, decided to drink quite a lot. So on the evening of the 27th of April 1996, Brian had been home with his girlfriend, so he actually had a girlfriend.
Right.
Which surprised me. But this was noted because he'd actually set an alarm for 6 a.m. the next morning. So this was quite significant because apparently he never set alarms.
Okay.
Like he never had to get up for anything.
Yeah,
so he never set alarms.
Yeah.
So it was very strange that he set this alarm for 6 a.m. the next morning. But clearly he had something important to get up for. So Brian and his girlfriend, they got up when the alarm went off. It was just normal. They had breakfast and then she left. So apparently after she left, he started having a few drinks. So I thought, well, clearly this was for some Dutch courage for what he was about to do.
Okay.
Because he was about to do something quite
Is this going to be the massacre?
Yes, this is where it gets. This is where it gets bad. So that's just quite a background about him. So you can see he was quite almost craziness guy, and just had obviously a mental age of 11, and just an oddball, I suppose you would describe him as, really. So he got in his car and he drove to a bed and breakfast guest house called Seascape. This was owned by David and Nolene Martin. The Martins had bought the bed and breakfast that Brian's father had wanted to buy, and his father had complained to him on numerous occasions of the damage done to Bryant's family because of that purchase. So Bryant believed that the Martins had deliberately bought the property to hurt the family and blamed the Martins for the depression that led to his father's death. So he basically shot and killed the Martins in the guest house before travelling to his next destination, which was Port Arthur.
Oh, okay.
So this was prior to going to Port Arthur. On his way there, he stopped at this guest house.
I thought this was going to be it now.
No, and he shot, the Martins, sadly.
Right, okay.
So his next destination was Port Arthur. Now, I've actually seen, because obviously I watched a documentary, so I've actually seen a person who's recorded on their phone. Like, you can't see clearly, but you can sort of hear, like, what's happened.
Well, like
the gunshots and gunshots and stuff, and you can hear, a little bit what's happened. But I'm obviously going to tell you what's happened. So basically, at Port Arthur, Brian entered the Broad Arran Cafe carrying a large blue duffel bag. He sat down, he ordered some food, and he ate his meal. So nothing out of the ordinary there. But once he finished eating, he got up and he moved towards the back of the cafe. He then set a video camera up on a vacant table. This is when he took out a Colt AR-15 SP1 carbine, which is a semi-automatic rifle, and he just started firing from the hip. He began firing and shooting customers and staff.
Wow.
Within 15 seconds, he had fired 17 shots, killing 12 people and wounding 10. He then walked to the other side and fired 12 more times, killing another 8 and wounding 2.
Bloody hell.
He then reloaded before fleeing. He shot people in the car park, and that's what I saw in the camera, because obviously the person taking the camera wasn't in the cafe. They were somewhere up. It was kind of a little bit of a distance away, but you could obviously see like the row of buses and stuff lined up, because it must be somewhere like this. Port Arthur must be quite a place where people stop and come and, I don't know, like for days out or whatever.
Right.
So there was obviously like sort of tour buses and that all parked.
It's like a touristy place.
Yeah, like a touristy place. But you could saw somebody running from the cafe. So you saw somebody fleeing from the cafe. And then it did say, the guy did say on the camera, you can see the guy there, but like it was too blurry, like you couldn't,
right.
I couldn't see him clearly. But
what year was this?
This was 1996.
Alright, so it wouldn't have been like
like no iPhones and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It would
so
have been like
I don't even know if it would be
camera.
on a phone. I think it'd be like, it was a video camera.
Yeah.
So obviously you couldn't really see clearly, but the guy was describing that you could see the guy, there basically. So he then reloaded before. Oh no, sorry. So he'd shot some people in the car park, and then he'd got into his yellow Volvo, and he'd shot a few people from there as he drove away. 4 were killed and 6 more were injured, and that's where I wrote in brackets. You see footage of this. So yeah, I say it's quite blurry, so you don't see anything. So he drove 300 metres down the road to where a woman and 2 children were walking. He stopped and he fired 2 shots, killing the woman.
No.
And the child that she was carrying.
Oh.
So, like, for not even a reason, they were just walking.
Well, I don't think there's a reason for killing any of these people.
Exactly. The older child tried to run away, but Bryant followed her and killed her with a single shot.
That's awful.
Mm-hmm. And I said, for no reason. They were just in the wrong place. They just crossed his path.
That's awful.
Yeah. He then stole a gold BMW and killed all 4 people in that. A short distance down the road, he stopped beside a couple in a white Toyota, and drawing his gun, he ordered the male occupant into the boot of the BMW, and after shutting the boot, he fired 2 shots into the windscreen of the Toyota, killing the female driver.
Wow.
So he's now got a hostage.
Wow, this is unreal.
Yeah. So Bryant returned to the guest house where he had shot the Martins. He set the stolen car on fire and took his hostage inside, where the Martins' bodies were still lying. The police soon arrived, because obviously they were totally aware of what had happened now.
Mm-hmm.
They soon arrived and tried to negotiate with Bryant for many hours until the battery in the phone he was using ran out, ending all communication. Bryant's only demand was to be transported in an army helicopter to an airport. During the negotiations, Bryant killed his hostage.
Ugh.
So he just killed him. The next morning, he set fire to the guest house and tried to escape in the confusion. He suffered burns to his back and bum, but Bryant was captured and obviously was taken to hospital to be treated, and he was put under heavy guard. Now, I've actually seen the police interview, so this is where I find it quite interesting, like the kind of guy that seeing the guy that did this, because he's just very, very peculiar guy.
Okay.
So I saw his police interview. So he was in a wheelchair due to his injuries. He just smiled most of the time. Like, he just seemed very happy with himself. He was just so smiley and almost giddy, like he was just like,
Well, I suppose we have to remember, if he's got the mind of an 11-year-old, then
exactly. He was just so happy with himself. And he was really, really interested to know how many victims there was. He just kept asking, how many was there. So
he didn't even know how many people that he'd killed. At this point,
no, totally. He didn't actually admit to doing it at first, though. He even came across wow, oh wow, what's happened? Wow, I can't believe this, and laughed. He just at first he didn't admit it. At the start he was laughing, and a woman was heard saying on the interview, saying why are you laughing? And he was like, oh, it's it's good to get it myself. I'm happy. I'm laughing because I'm just happy to get it myself.
Oh wow.
And she was just like, well, it's not funny. It's not funny, basically. And another example, they showed him the gun that he used, and he was like, oh wow, sweet gun, cool, that's really cool. And he was even trying to touch the gun, and obviously the police officer pulled it away from him.
Yeah.
But he was trying to touch it, going, oh, that's sweet, that's really cool. And I was like, okay, this guy's really weird. But what the most interesting part that I found in the interview is at one point, so he thought they'd actually stopped recording.
Right.
And he basically said, I'm sure you will find the person that caused this. And then you see him go, and he pointed to himself, and he was like, me. Like, me, it's me. And the interview was like, I don't find that a very funny statement at all. And he, like, Brian's like kind of laughing as he replies. He's like, oh, you should have put that on recording. And the interview was like, it is on recording. So, you know, it is.
Yeah,
like,
fuck
we've
you. It
got
is
it, recorded it. But Brian, he doesn't really react to that. Like, he doesn't react. He's obviously not bothered. So that, because I mean, he doesn't, even though he's obviously realised that he's just been recorded saying it, he doesn't react at all. There's no in his face or anything like, oh shit, or anything like that. He's just like, whatever, sort of thing.
No reaction.
Yeah. And then the other thing was that he actually, because you see it on the documentary, like, he's actually drawn like a diagram of how he shot everybody in the cafe, so that there's like little stick men. So he's like literally drawn all the tables in the cafe, and there's him, little stick man, and like black, and then obviously like his victims in red, you know, and it shows like the pattern that he did to actually shoot how he shot them in the cafe, which I was like, fuck it off. So he was quite proud of himself, do you know what I mean? He wasn't definitely no remorse or anything like that. So his trial obviously began on the 7th of November 1996. He initially pleaded not guilty, but he was persuaded by his lawyer John Avery and the prosecution to plead guilty to all charges. His lawyer said he actually thought Bryant wanted the survivors to come to court, which is why he wanted to plead not guilty. He actually thought he wanted them to come to court so that he could basically boast and be like whatever. It was just honestly, it was just like a really, really strange guy. Like, I was annoyingly, I was like so intrigued by him though, because even though like he's done such a terrible thing, I couldn't help but be intrigued by this guy, like how he was and what he was like. So I mean, if anybody ever gets a chance, I mean, you should, you know, to watch the police interview on the documentary. I mean, if you're interested enough, I would say watch it, because it's one of those things that I think you can't truly understand, and I can tell you what I've sort of feel, but I think you need to watch it yourself to really sort of go, this guy is very strange. And
I did see a thing on YouTube. Remember I said to you, I think I saw that guy, but I didn't watch it because obviously I knew that you were going to be doing this episode. So,
but no, honestly, it's just one of the, you know, I hate all these killers and stuff, but it was very intriguing, I have to say. So he was given 35 life sentences for which was for each person that he killed.
So he killed 35 people?
Yep, in total. And he was also given an additional, okay, see, this is where we go back to me and my ridiculous sentences, but he was given an additional 1,652 years without the possibility of parole.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Right. As we've said before, just say you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison.
Exactly. I mean, you know, the 35 life sentences was for each person that killed. I get that.
Yeah.
But the additional, I mean, obviously impossible to serve that. But basically, he's going to be in prison for the rest of his life. So in the end, he had killed 35 people and he'd injured 23 others along his killing spree.
That's awful.
I know, it's terrible. And obviously, like, there was his lawyer, John Avery, obviously he had done quite a lot of the documentary, because he was basically sort of telling his side of the story, and he was basically like, this man is a boy at the time, but he's like affected my whole life. Like, he had such an effect on this guy that he hasn't been able to shake him off. Like, because I think he kind of befriended him a bit. He has almost became like his friend.
Right.
And he was just like, you know, I can't. And him because basically he was telling us stuff that had happened in interviews and showing us the diagram of the, you know, the killing stuff, like the stuff that had never been obviously released before. And he was like, I'm hoping that this is going to give me some closure, because like I feel like my life's been affected by it, because he himself actually ended up in prison for 4 years. I can't actually remember what it was for, but I just think that the guy just had such, you know, Bryant had such an effect on him that it just, you know, got under his skin, I think. So as of 2021, Bryant is currently housed in Risdon Prison, which is a maximum security prison. So he's still there. I mean, he's not. I mean, there's been a couple of pictures of him, but he's like this kind of quite fat guy now. And because before, I mean, because he's like you know, he's like a sort of blonde, sort of, you know, like shoulder length hair, a typical like Australian kind of guy, I suppose, you know, blonde hair, yeah, like a surfer dude kind of hair and all that. But now he's obviously like, you know, short hair. He looks quite fat and stuff, and I don't think life's been kind to him in the aging process, that's for sure. But I mean, it was like a rare glimpse of him because he's very, you know, he's kept under wraps, I think, and like, even like he had like a medical condition where they obviously like they basically take him out before sort of this clinic opens to go and get his treatment and stuff, and then get him back in. So he's not seen very well. But as a response to the killing spree, Australian state and territory governments placed extensive restrictions on all firearms. So now, if you know, in Australia, I don't know if it's like all of Australia, but you basically, a person must have a firearm licence to possess or use a firearm, and licence holders must demonstrate a genuine reason, which does not include self-defence, for holding a firearm licence. So as a result of that,
it's always been like that.
Yeah, it was nice actually, because it was like I say, at the end of the documentary, it basically there was pictures of like every victim came up and stuff like that, and I mean, just such a shame. I mean, and I said for no real reason really, other than
so did he not explain why he did it?
Not really. He did not give. There was no reason. He just obviously that day. Not that day. He must have planned it, because there's also like footage of him back going into like a sports shop or something like that. He was caught on camera with his girlfriend buying like the duffel bag and stuff. So I mean, he obviously planned it, but I mean, he just.
So I take it the girlfriend didn't have anything to do with it?
No, she didn't have anything to do with it, because she was interviewed on the documentary, but she wasn't seen. Like, you didn't see her.
Right,
she wasn't.
I'm not surprised. No. I wouldn't want to be identified.
I'm just surprised he even had a girlfriend, to be honest. But, you know, she seemed to. Obviously, you know, the relationship was fine and stuff, and she obviously, you know, they were together. I can't remember how long together for, but they were together for a while.
Imagine your boyfriend doing that, That must have been horrendous. To find out that the guy that you were with was capable of doing something like that. Because I would have been like, oh my god, like, what if he'd done something to me? Like,
and I just think, like, if you had been in his path that day, you were getting shot at. I think, you know, no matter who you were, what you were doing. Yeah. I think, you know, if you came across him that day, then, you know, you were either, you know, you were at least getting shot at. You know, I said there were some survivors, so not everybody was killed, but you were, you know, you just wanted to shoot as many people as he could, I think. And
well,
I mean, I say that, and that.
Yeah, I would love to know why though.
No, but I think clearly, you know, mentally, you know, he was obviously unstable and stuff. I mean, going by the psychiatrist's, you know, comments and stuff, and then did say to them.
But something must have triggered him.
Yeah, I don't know. But then, you know, the woman that he befriended, that 50, I mean, that was a strange relationship there as well. And I mean, I do wonder if she hadn't died in that car crash, would he have been sort of kept more on the straight and narrow a bit or anything? But I don't know. It's
well, that I'm surely if whether or not he caused that death, that would have affected him in some way.
Yeah, but it sounds like he did, to be fair, because I mean, if he had already a track record of grabbing at the steering wheel, then you know, there's no coincidence there that she's ended up in oncoming traffic, and I mean, that doesn't happen, you know, unless you veered out the way for some reason. You wouldn't think.
Makes you wonder though, if he did used to do that, maybe it was just like a laugh to him to do something like that, being a bit daring, and then it did end up with her dying, and it was like, oh shit.
Yeah, I don't know, but it was honestly like, you know, if you ever see a video of him or whatever, you know, he's just so strange and peculiar, and I said it like an enigma, like just a sort of mystery. Like, it's just very, very strange person, and I mean, obviously a complete monster as well, because he's,
of course,
you know, he's basically killed all these poor people that were, you know, just minding their own business,
just going about their day, or being a tourist, or whatever.
Whatever they were up to that day. And you know, let's say that poor woman or two kids just walking along the side of the road, and you know, he could.
They were obviously just in the way.
Yeah,
like,
he could have just driven past. You know what I mean? He had no reason to stop and do that, but yeah, he felt like he did for whatever reason. And
well, he didn't have to do it to any of them.
Well, he didn't have to tell them. No, definitely not. But you know, total arsehole. And you know, he's obviously going to. It's quite, you know, quite rightly spend the rest of his days in prison. And
well, I think that's quite right, because
to be honest,
a danger.
I think, you know, I do think that if he didn't, you know, he's probably the kind of person that he came across is that he would probably do it again. You know, I don't. He didn't see. There was no remorse from him. There was no. Like I say, I think he wanted these people to come to the trial, because he was so proud of himself and like, come see me. You know, look what I did to you, basically. And I was like, yeah, that's horrible. So that is my Laura Sword for today.
Well, thanks for that, and thanks to everybody for listening.
Yes.
And if you would like to follow us on social media, we are on Twitter and Instagram,
which is crime_divers_pod.
We have a Facebook group,
Crime Divers Podcast.
Email,
crime_divers_pod@outlook.com. Sorry, I just totally lost my trail of thought there.
I was about you put me off. I was about to say Crime Divers.
Right, we're on YouTube and TikTok.
Crime Divers Podcast. TikTok, Crime Divers Podcast. Patreon.com/Crime Divers. If you join by the end of
June,
you'll get August for free. Sorry, we just didn't do very well there, did we?
But also, if you do like us, which I hope you do, and you do want to listen to us more for some strange reason, don't forget to subscribe, rate, review. Bye.
Bye.